Thank you, Chair. So the application relates to an end terrace property within a primarily residential area, or there are pockets of mixed uses in the surrounding. The application proposes the change of use of the property from a traditional residential dwelling house to a children's home for two occupants, for two children, with 24-hour care on site at all times. It was considered briefly at DMC, as Councillor Parish has already referenced, and the full report associated with that is within your agenda pack tonight. The application was deferred previously for a further information on the management of the children's home, and a further submission has been submitted by Children's Social Care, who are the applicants for this application, and that was within your application pack. We've also got additional comments reported within your agenda pack from the police. There was concerns raised previously by members around the management, and the comments have been provided by the police. Those comments are now provided by the neighbourhood inspector. Previously, they were provided by the designing out crime officer. Unfortunately, she was on leave, so couldn't have that consistent approach from that perspective. But the neighbourhood inspector does know the site well and knows the issues associated with it, and particularly in the past, and you can read those in the submission that's in front of you. On the basis of the new information that's been submitted and the reason for refusal, the recommendation of officers remains the same as previously presented, so it remains recommended for approval subject to conditions. Members will note, and again, Councillor Parish has already referenced this, that there's an update. There's quite an extensive note in tonight's update notes to detail comments that we've received since the agenda has been published. So we've got two additional responses from local residents, and they are primarily concerned about highway manoeuvrability, flooding and space for future residents. There's a letter from Andy Carter MP, who supports the principle of the children's home, but raises issues about it within this location in terms of pedestrian highway safety and space. And these are all responded to within your update note in terms of the officer's response. All these issues are addressed within the previous report, and that's just reiterated in your update note tonight. And there's a further representation from the applicant confirming that on the basis of the previous discussion at DMC, they'll no longer have team meetings or training sessions at this site, and in fact will provide alternative space in alternative council buildings such as Times Square for such uses, and they're happy to accept a condition on that basis, and that condition is drafted for the consideration of members in your update report should you be minded to approve subject to that condition. From an officer's perspective, no new material issues have been raised within those representations, and therefore the recommendation is as previous, so recommended for approval subject to conditions. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you. Any queries at this stage, members? Especially those who weren't here before? Okay. I've got three speakers against. All neighbours in particular order. I've got Mr. and Mrs. Fitzsimmons, is it, and Mr. Morland? Mr. Morland. Oh, you. Oh, okay, yeah. Yes, do please come and press the button right at the front of the machine in front of you, and the light should go red on it. You have to hold it. That's it. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Robert Morland. I've been asked to represent the people objection from Penketh Court to this development. Not in principle, but because of its location. From the rhetoric we are receiving from the WBC, the planning department, it seems they are determined to push this planning application through without listening to the local residents and its impact on them. And you particularly, Mr. Chair, should be impartial in meetings and not lead resolutions. The House is being prepared before...
I'm going to stop you now. If you're going to get personal about members of the committee, you're off on the wrong foot, I would suggest.
No. It's a point of order, Mr. Chair, which I'm allowed to make, and you stifled me the last time I tried to make a point of order. It's nothing personal. It's the Chair I'm talking to. The House is being prepared before the planning has been passed right now. They state that it is a planning determination and does not want to hear arguments relating to people's feelings regarding safety. Wellington Borough Council are landlords of Penketh Court, and I would remind you that they have a duty of care to the residents in the court who live in this protected environment. When we signed our tenancy agreements, we were assured of the importance of the sheltered accommodation and that aspect in the community. Remember, older people become very nervous in later life, including myself. Unlike your suggestion that the violent incident that occurred on 17 Farnworth Road was an isolated event, then you obviously did not complete your survey on the property. There have been multiple incidents that have terrified the most vulnerable residents of Penketh Court, ostensibly on the ground floor. Some have moved away due to harassment, and some won't come to the meeting because they fear reprisals from the council. I myself reported this problem to Ian Crevwell, who's the Environment Officer for the Wellington Borough Council, and I received no assurance that he could help. A very negative attitude, in my opinion. I requested freedom of information details regarding the said property from Cheshire Constabulary, but was told they could neither verify nor deny any records in this case, as information was not available at present. This committee could access this information. Did you request it? On-street parking exacerbates the dangers of residents. They have to walk in the road to avoid illegal parked vehicles. This is undoubtedly a hazardous for owners of mobility scooters. I would like to know what measures have been put in place to alleviate this danger. And saying it is a police matter is not good enough, because prevention is better than curing crime. I urge you to deny this application on the ground of care and consideration for the existing community. Thank you.
Thank you. And now either Mr. or Mrs. Fitzsimmons, whichever wants to go first.
Right, good evening, Chair, Committee. Right. Also, we objected to the inadequacy of the property as a children's home. The home having no back garden, only a yard, with a tiny front garden, which leads onto the busy main road. You can see submitted photos. No local amenities, no green spaces within a safe area, plus near houses don't have any families living there, and this property will be out of the normal demographic if any children resided here. They would struggle to find anyone within their age range to help them integrate. We also know of at least one child who was moved to another location due to being so unhappy. Some committee members who spoke also agreed it was not suitable to house the children due to the lack of amenities, etc. The other point being the objection of many residents of Penketh Court feeling unsafe and vulnerable with the history from the home, having witnessed violence, police visits, attempted break-ins, threats and property damage caused from the children who have lived in the home previously. It has been said that there has only been one isolated incident, and it was when it was used for semi-assisted living. This is incorrect, as there has been many more which have taken place since its opening as a children's home in 2012, right up to the change of use to semi-assisted living, which we ourselves have witnessed, which in one of the statements have been described as unfounded. I can assure you the police will have these logged if requested, or the carers questioned. Not sure how they can overlook the prior years or not have access to any of information of these events. Did the home not have a book to log these? Because I was told that they did. We know at least 3 children's names who resided there when it was a children's home, who caused lots of trouble and disturbance. I am sure these would have been logged in the home's incident book also. Surely the council do have a duty of care to protect the elderly and the vulnerable, and not to do so is prejudicial and discriminating. The application considers and caters for the well-being of the children, staff, neighbours and residents of Penketh Court. I hope it is not just to satisfy Wellington Borough Council for financial and political reasons. Thank you.
Good evening, Chair and members. So the objection we have for the application is highway concerns, with the main concern of lack of parking leading to indiscriminate parking in a residential area, which is having a substantial impact on residential amenities and the free space and movement, contrary to the guidelines of the use of the purpose of the children's home. The property being on a busy main road with only one permitted parking space due to parking permits. The home needs space for at least 2 and 4 parking spaces when there's a change of staff when they're doing shifts to accommodate the staff daily. We have read in the latest minutes that the staff meetings will be held elsewhere. So according to Wellington Borough Council's own DGN1 parking and surface and highways, if you could please read section 4 on the street parking guides, it does give you safety features of parking on street. The property is also opposite the vehicle entrance to Pencoed Court, which only adds to the impact and the additional movement of vehicles. At the last meeting, it was suggested that there's unlimited parking from the roundabout right up to the garage. This is untrue. We have submitted photographs to show that it was totally irresponsible to think that was a possibility, and to say it doesn't have any bearing on the application just means the staff should walk further. We have submitted photographs to show how unsafe it is to park on a narrow bend coming off the roundabout, and other photographs to show that the other spaces are private access where parking would be illegal. In addition to the road, it is prone for regular flooding, which makes the road even more unsafe, and we have submitted a flood map supplied by gov.uk. We did, however, request a full visit site at the last meeting to the members because they were struggling to visualise the view of the footprint and the scale of surroundings. This was denied, as I stated, they could see clearly from the drawn plans, which actually found confusing. I would have thought it was every committee's members' duty involved in the decision making to have carried out a site visit to enable them to judge the application and the true understanding. There's still been no explanation where the extra parking spaces are going to be without a danger to the highway, leading to indiscriminate parking in the residential area. We also submitted photographs of adjacent roads of Lamington Close, Victoria Road to show the limited parking space. And other photographs include services and Wellington Borough contractors visiting Falmouth Road, just parking illegally in the permit holders without any concern. Also, that we were concerned about the emergency vehicles and other service vehicles struggling to park in a safe place when attending the property. Just to give you a quick example, the fire brigades were called out to Falmouth Road on the 4th of September, 2 large fire appliances attended the property, having to park on a pedestrian pathway opposite, causing congestion. It could not gain access to the building from 16:43 to 16:55, which is over 10 minutes, because they had no contact information. So this is very worrying when emergency vehicles can't even gain access into the property. And just to add insult to injury, the actual alarm went off again for over an hour and 10 minutes, and we couldn't get hold of anyone to switch the alarm off. Also, at the property, there's no facility for any electric vehicles to charge.
So your time's up. Can you come to a conclusion?
Is highway safety immaterial to this application?
Thank you. I'm just hesitating, members, whether you wanted any questions at this stage, but I think it's probably best if we hear from the agent, which is Sharon Cooper.
She's the Assistant Director of Children's Services.
From Children's Services. Yeah.
My name's Sharon Cooper. I'm the Assistant Director and Strategic Lead for Children in Care and Care Leavers in Warrington, and as such it's my responsibility to ensure that the 340 children in care get the best quality and support afforded to them, and that they remain in their local community where they can maintain relationships with their family and friends, continue to attend the same school and access local health services. As corporate parents, we have a responsibility to ensure we provide care for our children within the Warrington area. Warrington currently has 3 mainstream children's homes with 11 beds, whilst private residential providers currently have 33 children's homes in the borough. These are profit-making organisations with only 2 Warrington children currently accommodated in them. As such, children are being placed in Warrington from other local authorities, and we are placing our children outside of the borough. Due to a lack of sufficiency of local authority beds, we currently have 39 children placed with private residential providers. The average cost of an external residential care placement for Warrington is now £273,000 per year. This is a 30% increase since 2021. The average cost of an internal local authority placement is £130,000 per year. We are currently spending circa £15 million on 39 children that we have placed in these private residential placements. Costs are rising, and only yesterday we were offered one placement for £18,000 per week. The property is currently empty and has been empty since the beginning of 2023. I'm aware there's been a number of objections made in respect of the identified property. Up until 2021, the property was operated as a children's home for nearly 10 years, and in the last 2 years it's been used as supported accommodation. Therefore, it has been used as a home before. To clarify a number of points, the property is a 3-bedroom property and will be used to accommodate 1 to 2 children. Each child would have their own bedroom, and the member of staff member remaining at the property overnight will have their own bedroom, as in any normal family home. There will be 2 members of staff on duty at any one time. It is not unusual for any family to own 2 cars nowadays, and as such park them on or near their property on the street. We are not asking for any additional parking, as it is not required. Also, the post holders are not essential car users, therefore they may not come to work in their car. There is a public house and a shop on the road. This is not solely a residential road with properties on it. It is a multi-use road. There may be periods of 60 minutes, 30 minutes twice a day when there will be a staff handover. We do not believe this will cause any disruption to parking on the street. There will be visits from social workers, professionals and family members. However, the majority of families have people who visit them regularly, such as grandparents, aunts and uncles, as well as delivery drivers dropping off parcels. So this is not unusual, and similar activities will be taking place up and down the street in households every day. The home has a small garden to the rear and a tiny garden to the front. Again, all the houses on the street are family homes, and the sizes of the garden will not impact on the quality of care afforded to the children at the home. When the property was previously operated as a children's home, the size of the garden would never raised a concern. The children in the home will have activity planners and will access appropriate activities outside the home to meet their social needs. In Warrington, we want local children to live locally in a community which they are familiar with, to reach their potential by continuing to attend their local schools. We want our children's home to be like those of any other typical family. The property in question enables us to meet all of the above, whilst wisely utilising public funds and increasing sufficiency of placement to meet the needs of the children in our care. And those children in care are often the most disadvantaged within our local communities.
Thank you. I was a bit generous with the time, seeing there was only you and there have been 3 objectors. But members, any queries to officers particular? Well, the officers want to comment anyway, because you've heard various things from the objectors about traffic and other matters.
So the majority of the comments I think that we've heard have largely been addressed previously in the previous discussion, and I realise that not all members were here for that. So if anybody wants to raise any particular queries on those, of course, we'll take them. In terms of the illegal parking, that is a police matter. So that's not something that under the control of the council, and members will recognise from previous experience on planning committees that an application needs to deal with its own issues effectively. It cannot address the issues that are already established within the community. So the question to members is whether this will exacerbate existing problems to a level that would be so significant as to refuse. Thank you.
Members, queries? Yeah, Councillor Lennon.
Thank you, Chair. Just a question for Sharon, if I may. I've spoken with the designing out crime officer who put the initial report in, which got this deferred. We had a good call. It lasted about an hour, and one of the key reasons was going into the reason why she said she couldn't support it at the time was just over a level of communication, and she wondered whether we as a committee tonight could condition that, and I if I've got my training right, I don't think we can. But I said, obviously, if you was coming, we could maybe have a discussion about that. She just raised a couple of concerns that there was no provision for missing children, and the process that they've gone through with Farnworth Road is different than one that they've just recently gone through in Burton Wood, which is a similar scheme. And she wondered, therefore, if you would be willing to have a meeting fortnightly, just for the first 6 months, between the PCSO, your staff, and the neighbours, so that you could have an open dialogue in terms of, any concerns that's being raised by the PCSO, any by the neighbours, and equally an opportunity for yourself then to speak to the PCSO neighbours in a proactive way. And she just wondered whether that would be something that you'd be willing to agree to.
Can we just establish, you're asking Ms Cooper whether she would agree to that, but you're also mentioning a condition which would have to be addressed to our officers, I think, as to whether that could be conditioned.
No, sorry, Chair. So I am assuming that it can't be. A meeting couldn't be bound by a condition. I'm assuming that's not possible, but I'm just looking to Nikki to see if...
From our perspective, we've considered this. We've got the police comments. There's no objection from the police, and therefore there would be a question around the necessity. I think the statement that was within the application pack, which Children's Services has provided, has committed to closer working relationships with the police, and I think that is echoed within the representation that's been submitted by the neighbourhood officer as well.
Yeah, thank you, Nikki. So I agree. We probably don't need a condition on this. It's just applying some context to last month's report and just seeing whether it can be agreed.
I think the issue is whatever Ms Cooper wants to say, it's not a planning issue. It would just be a management issue, which it sounds sensible, but I don't know whether you want to respond or...
We have really close working relationships with all the PCSOs who are local to all of our children's homes. They regularly visit the children's homes and engage with the residential care managers. I've got no objection to the PCSO meeting regularly with the residential care manager. Obviously, due to issues of confidentiality, I won't be able to agree to having conversations about individual children with members of the public.
Thank you. All right, Councillor Wheeler.
Thank you, Chair. If this house was being purchased by a young family with 3 children, lots of relatives coming and going, a couple of cars in the ownership, we wouldn't be discussing it. So it relates solely to the fact that these are vulnerable children in care who need our support. My concern is, and I think Sharon has touched on this, is the possible lack of outside space for these children. It is a densely populated area. I know there is some outside space at the front and the back. There isn't a lot. And again, if you were buying that house as a family, that would be your personal choice. So I'm just asking, is there because it's quite an unusual application, is it a material planning application for the type of use that more outside space could be provided or should be provided?
We don't have a council policy associated with that, Councillor Wheeler. I think the fact that it's been operated or could be operated as a family dwelling, has been used as a children's home in the past. That will be material to the decision, but we don't have a particular policy around external space standards.
Yes, Councillor Lennon.
Sorry, Chair, just a very quick one on that, if I can jump in. Just to point out that there is Wythenshawe Park, which is a 3-minute walk away from this house. So while it doesn't have a rear garden, there are facilities run by the parish council which would accommodate that particular need.
Thank you. Any other members? Councillor Jervis.
Yeah, I mean, I've read the new paper and obviously listened to the discussion at the last meeting, and I think I've heard it said that the new police intervention sort of overrides the previous police intervention, which I'm not so sure about. The designing out crime officer was very clear that there was a real problem. The problem was not engagement from the police to the home, it was the other way round. It talked about the designing out crime officer talked, if I can find the exact wording, about problems of engaging with the home, whereas this report says on page 21, the home will continue to support children's social care, strong working relationship with the police. Now, there doesn't seem to be something to continue there when the designing out crime officer is feeding back that relationship is not working. So the problem seems to be on the Warrington Borough Council side in terms of managing that relationship. He says, I've just found the quote, "I do not feel able to support the application given and the lack of previous engagement the staff have been prepared to make with local officers." That still remains on the record. The inspector's comments do not correct that, and therefore I continue to have a real problem in terms of that engagement. And I'm afraid there's a lot of words on page 20 and 21 about management of the property, but not really many specifics. For instance, it talks about the home will offer a programme, 52-week, 24-hour care and support for children, including one-to-one support. So does that mean if there are 2 children there are always going to be 2 members of staff there if we've got one-to-one support? And a separate issue for me, the size of the property. We talk about, yes, you could have a 3-children family living in the property, but it seems to me for a small property like this, there doesn't seem to be separate staff facilities from the children's facilities, which I think, again, is a real downside. And is that the sort of facility that Warrington wants to be promoting at this time? So I still have a number of concerns. I also heard the concern about there being just one parking permit available to this property, and there are going to be a number of cars coming and going in an area that is a real problem. Paragraph 9.20 of the original paper, the highway officer did say local on-street parking pressure will be increased to the possible inconvenience of other residents. That's the highway officer reporting in the previous paper. Nothing seems to have been done to address that, notwithstanding the conclusions. So I still have a number of reservations. Notwithstanding, I do recognise the importance of providing facilities like this within the town, and I recognise the cost savings. I just don't think this is an ideal property to be used.
Yes.
So just to clarify on a couple of those issues, there is distinction to be made between the comments that were previously received by the police and those that were received more recently. But the roles of those 2 officers are different. So you've got a design out crime officer who commented previously, previously known as an architectural liaison officer, and we've got the neighbourhood inspector who's commented on the current scheme that we see in today. So that's one difference. The other important point to make is that the design out crime officer did not object to the application. So they raised concerns, and it was stated within there. If they'd objected, we wouldn't have brought that to you. They raised concerns, but also recognised that could have been based on perception issues. We've got further details there now from the neighbourhood inspector, more familiar with the site, who's clarified their position on the current application. So that was one thing. The other thing as well is just to pick up on the police will support the home and young people as part of an ongoing commitment. And Councillor Jervis was concerned that there is no ongoing commitment because it hasn't happened so far. But of course, I interpret that as it's an ongoing commitment working with children's social services rather than this particular site because it isn't operational at the moment. Then the final point is regarding highways and cars, and the reference that Councillor Jervis has just made there to an increase of parking may be to the increased inconvenience of other residents. Now that site, notwithstanding, we've got a condition in the update notes that members could attach to any approval if they wanted to, which removes any team meetings or training taking place at the site, and therefore high numbers of people visiting the site at any one time. Notwithstanding that, this property is empty at the moment, so any users within that property in the future would have that same effect. Thank you.
Thank you. I think, Councillor Barr?
Thank you, Chair. I'm interested by the fact that this house was used for the purpose that's being applied for now, for a period of 9 years between 2011 and 2020. And an awful lot of the complaints seem to apply to the period between 2020 and 2022, when the house was used as semi-independent living. Were there any issues prior to its shift to semi-independent living in 2020, and during that 8 or 9 year period, was there a support worker in the house all the time with the young people?
Do you want to respond if you know the answer?
I've only worked for Warrington Borough Council since 2019, so I'm not able to comment on any period before that date. It was used as a children's home for a 9 year period. There will have been members of staff at the property during that time. In 2020, we changed it to supported accommodation, and this meant that there wasn't the same staffing required at the home. So what I would say is that actually having a children's home there will be 2 staff on duty at all times. Therefore, the management of the home will be much better than it was when it was supported accommodation, because the staff will be on hand to manage any situations that might arise, as they would arise in any family unit, in any family home up and down the country.
Thank you, members. Can I raise some... Councillor Barr's touched on the source of most of the complaints, I think, apart from traffic, which is, the issues that have been, and I think members will accept from what the residents are saying, there have been certain issues. I think the question is, can you assume that those issues are going to happen in the future? And I'm looking at paragraph 925 and government policy on this, where we are to give due weight to and be supportive of applications where appropriate. So obviously this is one case where you would need reason to refuse. Take advice from the officers, but basically you're being asked to assume that things will go wrong. On terms of the traffic, it's I don't know about busy main road. It gets busy at times, like most roads do, and it's nothing. The planning committee can't impose speed limits, but a 20-mile-an-hour limit could be something that would be looked at. But I was just looking to the officers as to what weight we do have to give to policy, government, and our own relative to, let's call it, a risk of behaviour of the children not being what we would wish.
So as members all know, that all planning applications need to be made, all planning decisions need to be made in accordance with local development plan policies, unless other material considerations indicate otherwise. The fear of crime is a material consideration, but it just needs to be evidenced. So if it is a perception issue, perception isn't material to a decision. Thank you.
Okay. Members, Councillor Lenihan.
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to just respond to what you said there about the road and maybe touch a bit more on the parking. This road, as I mentioned last month, has been something over the last 5 years as being a councillor, been quite heavy casework. The road's at saturation, and before the restrictions that we've put in, there was quite a lot of accidents. Not all have made it to crash map because they weren't extremely severe, but I was on site for two of the most recent ones. So I'm struggling in terms of, because I sit on the Protecting Most Vulnerable with Sharon, and I know the good work that these homes do, and I've got no issue with the amenities. Wivenshaw is just a few minutes away. I've got no issues with the size of the house. Sharon's more than qualified to make sure that the house is suitable for the children. It's the sticking point for me is the parking. We heard before that there'd be staff changeover for 30 minutes, which would involve potentially 4 cars. The road is at saturation in terms of 4 cars there's no space for 4 cars on that road. The nearest space that I can think of, having lived and grown up in the area, is probably the Co-op car park, which is probably about a 7-8 minute walk, which in a summer's day during daylight hours is probably safe for staff, but obviously there's a concern for staff that if they had to park there and the changeover was at night. I just wondered if you was able to elaborate maybe on what direction will be given to staff in terms of parking. Would the changeover happen with the cars outside the house, or would they be instructed to park elsewhere, if that's okay?
I'm quite happy to instruct the staff to park away from the property in other residential areas and to walk to the home. I think there's a residential parking permit, isn't it, that is required, so we will purchase one of those, and the other car holders will have to park elsewhere. As you said, there is a local co-op on the street. There is also a public house on the street with lots of comings and goings, people going into the shop, going into the public house. This is not different than people going to the shop or into the public house. And that's all I can say, really. It's a busy main road, isn't it? I will ask the staff to park away from that area so as not to inconvenience the residents.
So I hate to argue with the ward councillor, but I mean, as far as I can see, there's no parking restrictions between the roundabout and the garage.
So on travelling east on the left-hand side, it's double yellows until you get to the small cottage, and then there's H-bars to where over the access, because we used to have constant cars running the length of it, which was identified as causing the accidents. So the H-bars now allow relief for traffic travelling east. Priority is then given to traffic travelling west because there's double yellow lines west. So the parking permit scheme is outside the row of terraced housing. The pub does have its own car park. It does have a gate on it and is for patrons only. So the residents don't have a good relationship in terms of using that for their own cars, I believe. So I think that would, by the wider narrative, not be allowed to be used. Because the road is quite tight, we've lost the bus route because of it. The route's changed. Feasibly, the only place would be to park was 7-8 minutes away, and my concern there would be lone members of staff late at night walking that distance. Is it a concern? Because there's no available space along any of that road.
I will not press the issue, but Councillor Jervis again.
I mean, I come back to the size of the property. I've heard there are going to be 2 children and 2 staff, and 3 bedrooms. There's no separate staff facilities. I just don't think this is a big enough facility. I fully accept that a family with 3 children could live there, but I don't think it's for us to be approving a facility for 2 social care workers and 2 children. It's a totally different situation to a family situation. I just don't think it's a suitable house for a children's home, and I don't think the comparison with a 3 children family is a fair comparison.
Councillor Barr.
If I've got it correct, the Station Road is a cul-de-sac just round the corner off Farnworth Road, quite close to the property. I know because I park there quite regularly collecting Indian takeaways from the nearby tandoori, and certainly when we go in the evening, there's always space on Station Road to park. Now, it wouldn't be ideal for anyone to park there for an entire shift, but for turnaround parking temporarily, that is available just across the road. So my experience of the area, I bow to Councillor Lenihan, who's been brought up in the area and goes every day. But I visited it from time to time. I don't say I don't see a problem. There is a problem, but I think that there is some additional capacity in the immediate area.
Councillor Wheeler.
Thank you, Chair. It's a question for Sharon, if I may. Councillor Jervis has mentioned that there does not appear to be separate staff facilities for staff who are providing the 24-hour care. So how will the arrangement work for full-time staffing?
What I'd like to say about that is we've moved away from institutional care for our children in care. We no longer operate the large children's homes that we saw in the 70s and 80s, where you had, between 6 and 10 bedded units. What we want to operate is small children's homes to give children in care the feel of living in a family home. As such, it will be run as a family home. All our other children's homes are run as family homes. We have another 2-bedroom property and a 3-bedroom property that we operate quite successfully. Both have just actually both currently have good Ofsted ratings. So the issue around a separate staff facility is not one that Ofsted regulates for. We don't have to have a separate staff facility. There will be a separate staff bedroom, but they will operate as a mother or father would within that home, and they will be living alongside and with those children as corporate parents, and that's how it should be. We don't want separate staff facilities where children are left in one side of the house and staff members are doing paperwork, etc., in the other side of the house. It has to be as normal as we can possibly make it to make their care experience the best it can possibly be.
Okay, members, any more queries or comments? If not, I'll look for a resolution. Councillor Gallagher.
Thank you, Chair. I don't think we can look at this in a historical way. What happened in the past happened in the past. We've got to move forward, and we base a decision on the report in front of us. This is a model house that is well used across Warrington. I know I have one close to where I live, and I think we have a duty of care as a society to children who unfortunately find themselves in this position. So I would like to move approval subject to the conditions.
Is that seconded? Councillor Carr seconds. It's been suggested, before I put that to the meeting, there has been a suggestion for an additional condition. Do you want to tell us again? It's not actually in, we're not actually got text, have we? But it was in the text, is it? Sorry, I missed it. I've been through this 3 times and missed it all.
So the applicant has confirmed in a subsequent note further to the publication of the agenda that there would be no staff training or meetings taking place at the property. And on that basis, if members wanted to impose the following condition, this would be acceptable to the applicant. The condition is there shall be no team training or team meetings hosted at the premises at any time.
Chair, I read that condition. I meant all the conditions.
Okay. So with that additional condition, I'm putting to the meeting that we approve as per the recommendation with those conditions. With those members in favour, please show. And against? Any abstentions? That's carried. Thank you. Thank you for your attendance. Yep. Okay. We're going to have a break while we change over the public gallery. So.